All right. So here we have today Betty Chen, who is the co-founder of Acala Network and Laminar Protocol. And so she's an alumnus from the Berkeley Blockchain Accelerator cohort of Spring 2020. And it's really great to be with her again. So Betty, I want to share with the audience the story of how you got into crypto and the journey of adventure and growth, which took you from working as a product manager and project manager and analyst, working in perhaps more administrative and bureaucratic backgrounds, and then making a jump towards startup life and towards blockchain.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here, Luke. It's really exciting coming back to Berkeley, as it's a place almost right at the get-go from where Acala and our startup started. And it's been nearly 2 years now, so it's quite a journey. So happy to actually share a little bit more later in the podcast. And a bit about myself. So I actually went to school in New Zealand, graduated from an engineering school at University of Auckland. So I was an engineer, a developer, right out of the gate of uni. But later of my career, I actually went down the so-called darker side. I become a product manager and also did a little bit of consulting, technology consulting. And then a little bit later, gone even darker to complete my MBA at University of Otago, as well as Duke. So I went to US for part of my MBA, and it was quite an interesting journey navigating, from a technology field and then going over to the commercial and operation side of things. Even though I said it's dark, but it turned out to be quite useful when I got into a startup, because I become that complementary person in the team, the least geeky person in the team, if you like. Even though I still have an engineering background, I can still read code, but certainly I'm not the one who's coding majority of the blockchain programs. Those are from my tech co-founders doing that, but I could certainly be that bridge and also be able to lead the commercial and operation side of the project. And it actually takes a lot of different type of talent and different skill set to actually make to be able to navigate in such a complex and fast moving space. And then as for myself, as you can, hear my story just now is very, very traditional, right? Similar to most folks, navigating in the space. But then probably 6 years or a bit more ago, I was personally involved in crypto, mostly learning about Bitcoin. Probably also like most people. And then a bit later on, I discovered this, the Bitcoin white paper, because the first time around, I heard it from some influencer. And then I was highly skeptical of what this person actually says. And then later on, I read the white paper. And then I also read the book, Mastering Bitcoin, which is written, I think, for general audience, but also for engineers as well, because from that, it really opens my eyes of how this thing work. Because as an engineer, if you actually know how Bitcoin or blockchain works in a real sense, right? Not just as a ledger, but actually how the consensus work, how it can actually remove the trusted third parties in there, actually, right? It is actually eye-opening and kind of like a huge shock to me personally. I was in the state of being so attracted to this technology and want to learn everything about it, that I try to finish my day job as quickly as I can so that I can spend more and more time on crypto, learn about it. And then I got to a point where I even programmed a blockchain using JavaScript so that I just understand the thing from the ground up. And that was the point that I realized, I wish I could get a full-time job in blockchain so I can spend all my time, all my professional time, in here, even my personal time in the space, because it's so exciting. But back then I was still at a job as a product manager in a Web2 company. But I think if there's a will, there's a way, right? And then not too long after that, I kind of got into a job as a product manager for blockchain. And that's really the starting point of everything, because once, regardless, what that first job might be, but as long as you get into the industry, because that is where I met my co-founders. I met my Retail, who was the CTO. I also met Brian, who's the architect in the team that I work in. And then we were just like constantly, just like, because of our passion, like we truly believe decentralization, Web3 technology, it's going to take over every aspect of the world. But of course, there is where things should start and where things will actually get to the tipping point, things like that. And we are using Compound 2 or 3 years ago when there wasn't even a term of DeFi, but we're just like super amazed by all the stuff that's been experimented on Ethereum. So that was where everything like started. So yeah, so it's been quite a journey to get to this point where we are in that ocean of innovation and building stuff ourselves. So yeah, so that's a long introduction, Luke.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm curious though, when and how did you come to the decision to and get yourself in a position to enter the blockchain and crypto space with so much momentum and so much power? Because effectively you kind of came into the space from a background that reads, from a background that's very readable. And then all of a sudden, one would scroll up your LinkedIn and realize, wait a second, this person just sort of evolved or became an outlier. And I'm wondering, that kind of an exponential progress or that kind of entry into a new industry, people might want to make that kind of transition themselves. And so for you, how did that all work out?
Yeah, so there's certainly no sudden success or a sudden sort of rising of a career as such, right? Because any of those is actually coming from years of accumulation, whether that's experience, whether that's knowledge. I think that's around the time of maybe 2017 or very early 2018. That was the point that I was like spending more time learning and writing code and studying about blockchain than I put into the time on my actual day job, even though I finished all my work, right? I'm doing pretty well on my day job. And that's the time that I, kind of like wanted to make a shift really very, very much, from internally. And then I was like at the point wanting to do anything. I'm happy to have a pay cut. I actually moved to relocate to a different city because of crypto. I was living in a very comfortable place, very retirement a lifestyle. Went to ski fields every weekend, and pretty happy life. But I don't know. I think everyone may go through this kind of experience, whether it's like if you fall in love or you found a new passion, you kind of go into this space. It's like you're willing to give up all the comfort stuff that you have, all the easy stuff that you have, all the belongings that you even have. I give up my house, I give up everything, and move to a brand new city and live in a shoebox, basically, compared to what where I was living in for quite a while. And then just every day I just I even choose a place that the commute is 10-minute walk to work. That's how much I dedicated my career to. So it's certainly the whole experience is very humbling because certainly there's a lot of like hard work and trying to learn and get into the space, trying to just give before you even start thinking about how much I can take from this space, right? I think we're still at a very, very early stage of building a lot of the technology. So that's how I kind of got through that phase. And the thing is, I think crypto is a space that attracts a lot of real smart people and a lot of talent because it is a few very intellectually challenged. I'm sure you agree, right? Doesn't matter which background you come from, like finance, engineering, even design. I think it's intellectually really challenging, and that makes it really interesting and attracts a lot of really cool people, right? And that's also the joy of going to work every day, to actually meet these people and kind of trying to create something out of nothing, right? This is software, so yeah.
So tell us in short what Acala Network and what Laminar Protocol are, and why you feel a sense of passion and joy and love about these things.
Yeah, sure. So at Acala, we want to build a decentralized finance infrastructure that can provide people more access and freedom for their finance handlings. And of course, behind the scene, this is all powered by the Web3, the internet of blockchain technology. And we're hoping that with this infrastructure, we can be the bridge to bring the DeFi, the Web3 technology into the real world to everyday use. So that's Acala. And for Laminar, you can think about Laminar a bit like maybe Parity. So right now, Laminar is behind the scene is the engineering power or the development house for a lot of the technology and product and services being produced by the Acala project. Yeah.
So these are kind of ambitious and very scalable initiatives. I wonder what was the smallest version that you started with, and how did you actually come together with your team to put yourself in position to become this potentially industry-changing new wave?
Yeah. So a part of it is intentional. Part of it is also what life brings to you. The intentional part was my co-founders. So as I mentioned, I worked in a blockchain space. I met my co-founders, literally. I worked with those guys and I know them quite well. So there's a bit of trust there when we first started, and we have the same passion, same vision, and very much complementary skills, right? The other two guys are way more technical compared to me. But of course I can help them with many other stuff with a new project. So that's us quit our jobs and then hire a couple of hot desks, three of us, and that's how we got started. And the sort of the random part of it is we went to a hackathon in I think somewhere late in 2019. We went to the first substrate. So that's the technology behind Polkadot hackathon in Hangzhou, where our CTO was a judge at the event. Gavin Wood was also a judge at the event. The reason being we're being invited was we three have been building on Substrate way before we start the company. So we're probably one of the first and largest commercial teams building for this open source community. So we know the technology quite well, even before we kind of start on our own track. So when we went to this event, that's where we actually met our other co-founders at the event. So we were tapped to actually build a stable coin for Polkadot. And the thinking was, so Polkadot is this internet of blockchains. So you can imagine it's like a United Nations of lots of different sovereign blockchains connects together. If you are to build a stable coin, there's no way you can build it as a proprietary stable coin, if you like. It has to be some sort of consortium or some sort of like a very community driven stable coin. So we were thinking we shouldn't be doing it just ourselves as standalone company. We should find someone to partner with. And that's where we actually met our co-founder, the Polka Wallet team. So they are the first mobile wallet in the Polkadot ecosystem and also have a large user base as well, and very, very, very solid builders. And then, yeah, so that was the sort of the chance took us there, and then met the co-founder of Polka Wallet, and then we started code dating. So we dated about a month or two, and that's how everything started. So after dating, we realized we can make a really great couple and create this like project together, and that's how like Acala really come to shape after the coding period. And we decided, we want to do this like seriously. Then we actually sort of founded all the structure, and then start forming Acala formally. And that's right at the point where. I think end of 2019, and then leading into 2020. And I think Berkeley was like the first sort of a program of such kind that we actually joined, right? And we were still very young at that point, probably only a few months old at the time. So.
Yeah. So I want to ask, nowadays, DeFi is a big deal and it's a hot topic, and NFTs, very big deal, very hot topic. Largely, these things are on Ethereum, but other networks are due consideration as well. And we talked about stablecoins. Well, a lot of people like to make money on stablecoins, sometimes through risky apps online, in which they can do some staking, earn some yield. Without going too much into the details of what this all is mechanistically, how do you see the world of DeFi and also the world of NFTs, which I believe are more or less the same in terms of the human psyche? Both are worlds in which speculation is at a maximum, and people are sort of down to participate in relatively new and untested things for disproportionate, ridiculous returns. And much of the market is driven by not sense, but nonsense. um, yeah, I just wonder from your perspective, how do you feel about the way that DeFi, the way that NFTs, the way that hot things in crypto right now would manifest themselves and manifest themselves in different networks?
Sure. I mean, actually, when we first started, we built our first protocol on Ethereum. We deployed the final version on Coven before before the mainnet. But then right at the deployment to mainnet, I think that was the beginning of the DeFi spring. And then all the transaction fees as well as the speed just wouldn't work for the protocol that we designed. And then we just decided to ditch that and then completely focus on a more scalable solution on Polkadot. So that was sort of like a side story that we had at the very beginning of our journey. And then in terms of like DeFi, right? So I think we are still at a very early stage of building the financial infrastructure, because I actually think that the decentralized technology is going to replace almost everything that we had in the financial market today. Many of the closed-door proprietary systems, slow, clunky, expensive, they are going to be gradually and then to a point then suddenly be replaced by the decentralized technologies. However, I think we're probably not going to replace all the people. Also not going to replace all the agencies that are doing many of the work. For example, providing convenience to the end users, right? Which is what DeFi doesn't do at all. As a DeFi infrastructure provider, we create a place where there's open and transparent currencies, assets, liquidity, as well as yield, various different type of yield opportunity. And most importantly, they are open and composable, so you can build products on top of it. However, when it gets to the other end, right? When it gets to, for example, my mom and dad, or my peers, right? Who would not in their lifetime remember a 24-word keyword to store their keys in various different weird wallets as such, but they would use a mobile app or a debit card or credit card, which is something that they're very familiar and very convenient for them to do the daily transaction. Then they can, through their provider, basically the convenience experience deliverer, and then integrate with DeFi infrastructure like Acala, and then to actually enjoy that openness, enjoy that sovereignty, and also enjoy more sort of new opportunities. So this is where I see things are going. It's going to be more hybrid, right? Rather than it's going to be black and white. We're going to take over, or we're going to remove this component. I think the whole point is like we need to remember, why we're even doing all of this. It is actually for everybody on the planet, right? Not actually for people who know how to use the weird wallets. So from this perspective, I think the hi-fi, so hybrid finance, hybrid of decentralized finance, as well as fintech, as well as CeFi, these are different sort of players or agencies that are really good at a particular part of the experience, right? And then our goal is to be able to integrate with many of, like provide technical infrastructure to be able to integrate with these people and these agencies to deliver those experience. And the way that we are thinking how we do it is specialization, because I think we got to a point where generalization, like the general computing, right? Everyone have a laptop that we use today. They're good for normal stuff, but when you get to autonomous driving, you actually need the hardware chip to be specialized and programmed to do just that one thing. And this is how Tesla are able to, do really well in their autonomous driving in a very complex traffic environment, right? And this is also iPhone, how they delivered the superb user experience because they own the hardware to deliver the software experience. And this is our thesis as well. To actually deliver the best financial scalable experience, we need to own the blockchain. And this is what we're doing, right? And this is how we can actually customize the experience so that, for example, if you're doing a debit card transaction or settlements, you can settle in the currency that is most convenient for the service provider, right? Imagine if you still have to settle the currency in ETH or any tokens that goes up and down, the accountant's going to go crazy, right? This is a very subtle and tiny bit in the entire user flow. However, it is many of these blockers in the process that makes us think user experience is so hard, right? So in order to solve each one of them, we chose to do Acala is so that we can actually customize, we can forkless upgrade, because we can never predict what problems we are going to face when we get to a certain level of user adoption. But with the ability to be able to upgrade and also be able to provide those sort of more finance-oriented optimization, then we are able to, at least from our side, deliver the DeFi infrastructure that those folks from the other side, whether it's individual DeFi users or more so is the experience deliverers, I call them, or fintech providers, that they can integrate and deliver the last mile to the end users. So yeah, so that's how I see it. I think, the stuff that we see very raw on DeFi, like NFT and also DeFi, I think they're very early stage. There's a lot of culture element, like, a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, a lot of interesting ideas. I think those are very important because that's how our brain gets reprogrammed, right, into this new concept. And through those experiments, we realize what we can solve and what we can avoid in terms of a lot of the different sort of attacks and also different way of what not to do, right? So I think it's important to keep this innovation part on its own, but also not limited by this is the only users we are serving. The pie is way bigger. There's a lot more people that requires us to deliver those services to. Yeah, so that's my view.
What do you think are some use cases or some upcoming projects of the near future that'll see great success or see a lot of market demand in the crypto space, in the blockchain space?
Yeah, for sure. So, certainly, I think we got to a stage where the technology is a lot more mature now. And mature, I mean, if you make an analogy, we are probably closer to a internet Web 2 stage versus the dial-up stage. And which means once you get to Web 2 or internet stage, then you can do a lot of something as a service. And you can also do streaming. And you can also build more complicated user-oriented applications to serve much larger audience. So we are probably at the crust of crossing to that for the blockchain side of it. So which means we are moving towards an area where multiple different blockchains specialize in different area, then they could work seamlessly together. So for example, like you could be someone who's holding a Bitcoin, right? Today, you just hold Bitcoin, you do nothing. But we're closer to a stage where, well, with one click of a button, that Bitcoin can turn into a yield engine. It's earning yield on a staking protocol like Polkadot, right? Stable, high quality yield generation. And then at the end of the day, that can also return back in a stable coin format that you can pay for your lunch for free, right? And also it's privacy preserved, right? So this is also provided by a different chain. And then that flow is one click. My Bitcoin can turn into, $5, well, maybe $10 sushi every day. And through maybe a card or whatever means that you want to spend it, and also privacy preserved, right? So that is at underneath, it's a long flow, but from a user end, it is just one click, right? But underneath it, this is where we operate in as Acala and also many other, or blockchain providers or app or protocol providers, is to make those experience seamless, because those different steps may involve multiple chains working together, may involve like a bridge between Bitcoin and Acala, and then also may involve the protocols on Acala to be able to deliver the liquid staking and also staking payout, a stablecoin payout, and also involve maybe a privacy chain that we integrate with, that provide that privacy wrapping for the stablecoin and things like that, right? But behind the scene, there's a lot of work has to be done. But I think ultimately the user experience will be very thin and very straightforward for users, and that's I think where things are moving. But of course, the groundwork is still there to be done. But at the same time, there are more of the convenience provider comes into the space, like fintech providers, and also CFI providers, debit card providers, and they are trying to bridge the gap from top down, where folks like Acala, like us, where we are building the technology from the ground up, and then where we meet in the middle is where this entire experience can be connected together to deliver that to everyone.
So are there specific DeFi tools, apps that you would recommend or that you find to be sophisticated? Are there specific strategies that you've used or you've seen to be successful that people who are curious can look into?
So I've kind of come from Ethereum background, so I've used most of the apps on Ethereum to get your hands dirty. Certainly, maybe not on the mainnet right now because everything is like quite expensive. But certainly, there's a lot of experiments of different types of stablecoin, and then the stablecoin actually are able to have many more yield opportunity. And now there's also a way to be able to have a yield generation collateral assets, and you can borrow against it, right? So this is also available on Acala and Karura, where our staking assets is a yield generating product, right? It's a constant, stable 14 to 16% yield on an annual base, and then you use that to borrow against the asset, which is the interest rate is about like 3% or whatever it's providing. And if you make the math right, you could probably kind of do multiple leverages and do trading. And certainly there's a lot of experiments that folks can do. And there's I think every day there's like once you've done the menu stuff, right? I think some of the new ideas actually come from people want to be more lazy. So they build a smart contract to automate some of those steps, and then it becomes like a yield farming or a yield engine, and then also some other type of more sophisticated protocols as well. So yeah, so those are, I guess we can start from somewhere on Ethereum or some layer 2, or just come to Karura. There are also some of the different protocols on Karura, and also Polkadot ecosystem now start to come to life as well. So there's certainly different avenues that you can play with.
So, okay, so back to Acala and back to Laminar. When we say community, what does that mean? So community in terms of your team, of course, but who are the technical and non-technical people that you would love to connect with in order to further your ecosystem and bring about these great visions you have?
Yeah, sure. So I think this is the joy of working in an open source environment where, like all our code is open sourced on GitHub. And then certainly we have our core team contributing to that GitHub repo every day. But we also get a lot of external contributors, developers. They are either raising issues, bugs, or they're helping fixing some of those, and even picking up bounties to contribute to the repo for new features or solving issues. So that's certainly one area that I would like to see more folks building on top of Acala. And then the second category are dApp developers. On Acala, the DeFi infrastructure we built includes the primitives, right? So it has stable currency for transactions. It also has liquid staking, which is basically powering the economy's liquidity. And then on top of this is the open protocol layer. So this is where the smart contracts comes in. It's a permissionless and trustless deployment for any programmable protocols. So we certainly look forward to having more developer or protocol builders in that space. And then our structure is a little bit like sandwich. So at the bottom is the blockchain and the primitives. In the middle is the open protocol. And then on the top of it is our integrator. So we have current.com and also other similar fintech integrators, like the backend actually hooks up onto our DeFi platform to power some of their yield products, if you like. And then, so for the open protocol folks, certainly they can just build for the DeFi folks, right? As degen as they want. There's no problem with that. But also, there's increasingly more folks who come to the space with like much bigger ambition that they actually want to deliver their service to end users. And we certainly help that connecting the dots in our sandwich, right? So if they build at the open protocol layer, those are composable to become a product onto a fintech provider, and they can package up to serve a particular user group, right? So, so I think as we go forward, that protocol layer will become more and more important. Protocol developer as another group, and then I think our community like now has kind of across all over the world, both the Western, Asian Pacific, and everywhere. I think it's close to 700K community members, and many of those folks are non-developers as well. So they contribute from a content perspective, local meetup groups. I think I'm going to go to one tomorrow at London meetup, like virtually. And then help spread the words and educate folks, and also like seek new opportunities for folks to build on Acala as well as contribute to us and work together in various different ways. Yeah.
So for those of us listening in who are like, oh, well, this sounds great, and Betty seems cool, I want to work for Acala, or I want to partner with Acala. So for those people, do you have some recent stats or recent win stories that you could share about the milestones you've achieved, and about how from when you were nothing but a small company, how you've progressed since then until now? You know, why people should take note of you?
Absolutely. So 2.5 years ago, we started with nothing but like 3 or 4 people, right? And then we've built out our application and the blockchain itself in the past 2 years. And then about 3 months ago, we've launched our first blockchain. And then we're just about to launch the actual Acala on Polkadot. We're actually in the middle of the launch process. So this is the Polkadot parachain auction process that I'm referring to. And then there's a crowd sourced process to a fair launch. So basically you contribute DOT or your crypto, and then you help a project to launch. And then the project will actually give you a reward because of your support. But in 2 years' time, you get your crypto back, right? So it's almost like risk-free, apart from giving up some opportunity cost. And then this is a way to keep a project accountable for delivery, because in 2 years' time, if the project doesn't deliver, it just gets a parachain slot, it doesn't do anything. Certainly you have very little risk, but the project has everything at risk, because it will risk of not getting another slot, not getting your future support, and also not delivering any value, which means it just gives out its token for kind of free or for nothing, right? So this is sort of the upside down way compared to ICO. because the founders of Polkadot, coming from that background, myself including, is like ICO is a great way to raise support, crowd support, but it doesn't have the enforcement for keeping people accountable for delivering the projects. So this is a upside down way to keep everyone accountable in the ecosystem, and also like long-term sort of community members for that. So we're in the middle of it, and this is the third day or fourth day. I think there's one more day before we go into the actual auction. So far we have 63,000 unique accounts contributed to our crowd loan. And we've raised 12 million dot. So at its current market cap, that's probably about 800 million US dollars at its current value. So certainly, seeing from zero to 63,000 people, accounts sort of supporting us, it is quite an achievement. And also, really appreciative from folks from all over the place to kind of like supporting us. And that's certainly an event that even you don't participate, it will be very interesting to kind of watch, to see how these teams actually turn out and how the auction process actually proceeds. It's actually quite an advanced mechanism, compared to what's out there in the market. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure by the time that this episode comes out, all the above metrics and numbers would be even farther along, because this industry does move very fast. Very cool. Well, back to basics here. I'm wondering, from your perspective at this point, you as a founder and as a person, what are your priorities?
Number one is like people. So we are growing our team from 4 to about 34, and then continue to grow to attract talents who kind of like want to build out this vision with us. And I think we've got a good start, a good, very solid engineering base for the products. But as we actually grow and expand and reaching out to the other side of the world, like across the chasm between crypto and the real world, there's a lot more work needs to be done. So we're certainly building up the team and the capability to do so. So that's one area that we're focusing on. And then the second area is certainly like security. And that's a big part of what we do on a daily basis. So we are building out partners, basically service providers can be there 24/7 alongside with ourselves to be able to monitoring as well as real-time assessing both economic as well as engineering, like the security side of the things. And also coming up with new ways in kind of monitoring like the cross-chain aspect, because now the network is not just like standalone. You're basically on the internet, right? So how do you actually monitor how the funds go across the internet, and how can you be sure and secure of those transactions as well? So so security is also on top of our priority as well. And then I guess the third aspect is ecosystem. So this is like growing our community of supporters as well as like developers in particular that can actually build stuff alongside with us. So we are rolling out a ecosystem fund. I think now it's over 100 mil or something. We haven't announced that yet, but as well as the ecosystem program where we will help folks who's building with Acala from a technical perspective, maybe token economics if that's what they need, also security audits, and also other aspects that we are really good at, and then they may particularly need help with, as well as like funding and resourcing and things like that. So hopefully, together we can go a long way to actually achieve what we want to achieve. So yeah.
Well, we're almost at the end of the episode, but I want to ask you, on behalf of people who might be thinking about joining the accelerator program or who might be thinking about starting startups within the blockchain and crypto space, do you have any advice for people who are looking at this potential risk and potential journey, what you would tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I've never expected the stuff that we're experiencing at this stage of our startup, because I think you always start with some sort of expectation, but life or the world never turn out to be exactly what you want. And sometimes it is a lot more excitement, and also at the same time there's a lot more challenges that you might have expected. So I think just keep an open mind would be a good starting point. And then the second thing is like we graduated from Berkeley, and that was like but basically through Berkeley, you guys actually witnessed our growth. Basically from the very get-go, only a few people in the team, and then right up to our Series A raise, I think that was led by Pantera. I think even Pantera, I think we connected to Paul through the Berkeley program. So this is a place where we actually got started and grow. So I've always, kind of be really, really grateful for the program, because above anything else, I think the program has the highest quality, as far as I've been experienced, of the people, right? Very, very ethical. This is like very high standard of all the people who's involved, both from the curriculum side, the mentor side, VCs, and also people who's involved. So I think we've gained tremendous from this accelerator experience, because out of anything, we've connected with the peers that we're building with, but more so from people who's from other angles that could potentially help us right there then or down the track. So yeah, so I'll certainly recommend folks. Well, I think now it's not that easy to get into the program. Even back then, I think you have to get really well prepared and try to be out there to be able to get into the program. But I think if folks who have the chance to get into the program, I think you never regret. I think for us, it's just that lifetime experience that it's just amazing. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, for any would-be entrepreneurs or even would-be professionals and practitioners in the industry, do you have advice about how one could get into blockchain and crypto, how one can get started building a project, or potentially get some advice or mentorship? How people can get their feet wet in our space?
Yeah, I can only speak from my own experience, how I crossed the chasm from Web 2 to Web 3. It's basically just like let go of anything. Because at my career turning point, I was willing to give up anything, like pay cut, no titles, or anything, right? Eventually, those all come. But if you don't go in with baggages, you're going to get more. You just go in and see what you can contribute, because everyone come from a certain background, maybe with certain experience. I'm sure everyone will be able to contribute in certain ways into a project. So just find the project that you're interested in, and then just start contributing. And then all of this becomes a snowball, because once you start on a project, it doesn't have to be the best project. It's just to be a project that you are able to get your hands on, and then start contributing, and things will build up, right? Maybe you start writing, an analytics research, you've done some data analysis, or you start writing some code, or some other aspect, like helping with the growth. Then you will start getting your hands on it. And then as soon as you get into the industry, start meeting people, then you realize what you're really good at, what you're really passionate about, and where you can really go really deep, become an expert, right? So I think it still doesn't take away folks becoming this T-shape, I say. So you have your expertise, because this is where you do one thing really, really well. But then the T is where you can actually communicate and collaborate with various different experts that you can achieve the same outcome. As long as you have those, then I think you'll be doing well anywhere you go, or any project that you're involved in. So that's just from my experience.
Yeah, totally. So final question, a fun question. If blockchain and crypto went away, what would you do?
I don't know. I might just go on snowboarding trip for a while, and then maybe meditation trip, go into a cave for a while, and then come back to the world and see what else I can contribute to. Okay,
fair enough. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with the Berkeley Accelerator crowd. Yeah, you're always part of the family. And if anybody wants to connect, then how best can they connect with you and everything you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, look, as part of the family. So I think can maybe follow me on Twitter at Betty Chen. And also maybe my email, like betty@acala.network. So those two places. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing all the rest of where this journey takes you. I think really you're at the beginning of a major breakthrough. And so, yeah, until we talk next.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But have a great rest of your day. Thanks again for showing up here.
Yeah, thank you.